Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with us again today Andrea D'Agostini. He talked last time about scaling businesses, and if you haven't listened to it, please go back and listen to that podcast. It is a marvelous perspective on how we're going to scale businesses going forward now post-COVID. Things are different, and we need to think differently. So he has a great perspective. He has taken businesses in Europe, in beauty and in music, grown them exponentially. He has been here in the United States, worked with power and gas, grown those companies, and now he's working with entrepreneurial companies, really growing them and developing them. And today we wanted to focus on your metrics of success because you have a wonderful, unique perspective on how to measure success. So
thank you.
Can't wait to hear.
I think you share the same. I think you share the same viewpoint.
Well, perhaps.
Lois.
Yeah, you're kind. You're very kind.
Thank you. Well, the point is that in terms of metrics of success, one thing that social media and all these elements have educated us on is the appearancy, and is the bling bling, and is the shininess, and it's almost that status is the metric of success. Now, there is an element that is often used in the society right now, which is build a company that solves your problems and so on and so forth. And that is sometimes possible. Like I truly believe that one metric of success is how many people you can help. So that is very true. And I really believe that success can be defined when you're so good at something that you can help another. So when you become so good that you can just freely help another. So that to me is success, right? And this success in particular doesn't necessarily require a person to be extremely wealthy or have that other metrics in. But if you're that good that you can help another, you've created enough life for yourself that you can help another, that's very powerful in my view. So when it comes to measuring, the question is, what do you measure? It's a very interesting thing. Let me give you a little story that kind of gives you the angle that I started my research on, or my analysis on. I had this person that came to one of my talks, and after the talks he came and said, I listened to all you're saying, but I have the owner of my business, definitely millionaire, but he's not a good person, and I don't understand how a person that is not good could be so successful. And that was a very interesting statement, because it showed me that the only angle that the person was looking at to measure success was number of zeros on a bank account. So we started to look into what he knew about this individual. What you see behind me is my wife, also my partner. We look into the individual and how his life. So here we go. It's quite interesting. So I asked him, this guy's so successful, huh? Okay, so how is he doing, like, physically? Like, how is he doing? He says, got 2 bypass, and he has diabetes, and definitely, like, body-wise, he's not doing well. He says, okay. What would you say about his family life? And he said, well, as a family, he is, though, like, he has most likely an affair with one of the colleagues. And you can tell that the family is very much in fear of him. Like, they're all, like, very careful. He says, okay. And then the people around him, the staff, do they love him? He says, oh, hell no. No. If it wasn't like he was paying a lot, it was in the financial space, no one would want to have anything to do with him. He says, okay. And is he helping? Like, would you say that he's helping others? He's like a philanthropic intervention, like activity? Says, no, nothing, right? So it was painting a pretty grim picture. Now, obviously, I don't know the person. I don't know this particular business person. Right. But if you look at that life, I wouldn't not call that life a successful life, like, at all. Even if you can, experience some sensations, you can go out and buy a thing, right? Is it successful? So culturally, we've been moved into focusing only on a few success metrics. Most of them are just apparency. Most of them are the picture that you show on Instagram or the toy that you have. And we think that having like that big of a car is actually the metric, is actually the element that determines the currency of life. And it's not. It's just not. So in my research, it went into, okay, that's interesting because you can measure money easily. It's just a number, easy. How do you measure the rest? How can you have metrics for that? And that opened the door to something that touched me also personally, because you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, okay, but I'm looking at another. But what about me? Am I measuring me? Am I doing what I can do? So I would say this. I found out that here's how it works for me and what I teach to my entrepreneurs. There is a scenario that you can picture in your mind that you can look at and you're like, this is how I want to work with others. This is how I want to have a family relationship. This is how I want to live, right? And you can have people that want to contribute to society and to others, and they will have a certain kind of a picture. There are people that have a completely different approach, right? And they have different kind of picture. So in order to measure then money, you need to measure it towards something. That measuring needs to be, it's not just how much, but it's how much toward that direction, that ideal scene that you have built for yourself, or that picture that you have created for yourself. And what I've discovered talking with, I remember the number, it's just above 60, probably 63, 64 entrepreneurs that looking at them, it seemed that they achieved good success, and financially they were in different places. One guy, for example, has a restoration company, and he arrived to the point of fully delegating his activity. He has not been working more than 1 hour in the past 14 years, I would say. Wow. He makes it just above 7 figures a year for himself. And he's one of the happiest person that I've individuated, and he dedicated his life to charitable contribution and charitable activities. Okay, so that's what he wanted to do, spending time with his family and so on. So he worked toward that objective. He empowered his staff so they continue to work, and he built his business. So is he making $25 million a year himself? No, I would say that he's probably making a couple of $1 million a year for himself. But that's a great level of success. You see this guy's life and you're like, yeah, I would love to be in his shoes, right? So it's beautiful to look at. It's an art, the way he's living. I know another guy, he's selling his company right now. By the way, if you want to invite them, I think they're people that are worth listening because they have mastered quality of life. So it's nice. This other guy, his name is Vic Tipness, and he has Blackstone Medical, his company. He built this company from nothing to, I would say, a $200 million company, $100 to $200 million company. It's a big company, 300 staff members, offices in the US and in Colombia. And he was telling me, Andrea, I knew what I wanted to do, never been able to do it. And I've been losing most of my life. I've been winning in the past few years, just in the past few years. He just turned 45.
For you personally or for him?
He was talking about himself.
Okay,
it was like, Andrea, I have been losing for most of my life. I've been a loser. And just recently, I started to win. In the past few years, I started to win. But I always knew what I wanted and who I was and this element. It's beautiful. And he has a beautiful life. He loved cars, so he bought a bunch of cars. And he wanted to have a certain life with his family. And so he's building that. But you can tell his staff member love him. And there's this like wavelength that comes out of it. So out of these 63 people, what I found out is the following. The ones that are really Renaissance people, they all have a clear vision that has a strong flow of help embedded in it. Help their staff, help society, help their family, help the customer. Help is the big word. And they had it very clear where they wanted to go and how success is defined. Success was not just getting money from someone. It was being handsomely paid for very happy customers that receives a great product, that feels is super in exchange. And then, it was very well defined. What is the exchange with the customer? What is the exchange with the family? What is the exchange with others? It was very clear. And so I have observed something that surprised me, which is that in these metrics of success, there are certain elements that are not quantity, but quality. So it can't be measured. It can only be defined. So the way you want to live your family life, that's a definition of quality. You describe it. Can't measure it. Only you know, right? Only you know, but you can't measure number of smiles that your wife gives you, a number of kisses. You can't measure it. It's just, that you're going there. So I found that, that's very interesting. Very interesting. Part of these metrics can't be measured because it's quality. So it can only be defined. And the fact that you know it, the fact that you have defined it, it's part of the process. Then when you start to put money behind those items, then it expands the manifestation of it. It expands. Like if you can take your wife for dinner, it's one level because you love it, you want to treat her. Then you reach a certain level of success. We went to Saint-Tropez this summer with my wife, and we arrived to a certain point of our life where we can fly private, which is beautiful. I couldn't do it years ago, and it's very nice. And it's to treat her. It's to make it beautiful for her. When we travel, we do these things. So you see, it only expands a quality that was already there. So it's a very unique thing that I have observed in my interviews. The money expands a quality that is already there. So in these metrics of success, what one should do, my suggestion obviously is the following. Number one, disregard whatever Instagram and whatever thing. I know many people, and you would not want to exchange life. Looks like great, is not. Like you would not want to exchange. Like you're like, oh, me being that? Hell no. Hell no. So disregard it. Number two, the success aspect is really yours. Like your definition of success is really yours. Having it clearly defined, have a clear vision of what it is for you. What are you giving? What you want to receive? Very clearly defined. It's half of the job. And the other aspect is you might be more successful than people that have more money. You understand? You might be way more successful than people that have more money and they leave this apparency because you know where you're going. And so you can put your energy in that direction. So today, especially, where we have all these stereotypes and so few people that are focusing on what really matters for them, not even for the world outside, for themselves. We need to go back to that. We need to go back to the definition of what it means for you, what it is for you. And on that, you should measure your progress, because that will take you where you want to be. So this is what I've observed.
So Andrea, what fascinates me is, what point in your life did you come to this definition of success, this measurement of success? Because it takes a certain amount of discovering who you are to even notice it. Because part of what I notice is people are blind to anything but money as a measurement. So something happened that awakened you to that in your life. What was that?
You want the story? Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I'll tell you as much as I can. I'll tell you as much as I can. Okay. So, so I had success and lost a few times in my life. So reached a level that was like, oh, we're gonna win, and then lost it. And for most of my life, there was a dichotomy. The dichotomy was two opposed elements. One was I totally perceive my horsepower, and at the same time, but is not expressing in anything. Like potentially, I could get things done and get great results, but is not getting anything done. Like there is all this potential is not expressed. And this is an interesting thing I observed in many people that have a perception of themselves, but it does not translate in a result. So I win and lost many times, and I hated it, like really hated it. I've observed that I wasn't going anywhere. I was moving, but it's as if you move always at the same level, but it doesn't go up. So along the line, I have learned certain bits and pieces, but I myself was very much involved in the stereotype game. I wanted to be in a certain way and have flashy things. Yeah, very much so. And I was considering as opinion leaders and mentors, people that had that type of approach, and reached levels that one would say, well, this is definitely high level, definitely. They were not happy. They were not, like really, really not. They were deeply sad and deeply devastated by how their life was evolving in the cases that I have observed. So at a certain point of my life, I observed that I need to change something. This is not going well. This is not going, I ain't gonna go anywhere. Like I'm gonna live a life like that and then safely die. Like it's not fun. There's no purpose, right? It's tiptoeing in life or treating life as like the general rehearsal of life. The general rehearsal, right? Instead of leaving, you're like doing the general rehearsal. So
that is a great distinction. Wow, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, that was me. So I was that guy, and I consider that probably professionally, I needed to find another way to define what I do because like I didn't care much. And it wasn't until relatively recently that I put the pieces together. And it is when I had to make a very important decision business-wise. One would have been going in a certain direction for a lot of money that I didn't like. And the other one was to go in a completely different direction, way more risky, way more rewarding, obviously, but way more risky that I did like. And so at that particular point in time, which metric will I use came into real application, right? So what is the metric? Because if it's like, well, more money, well, then more money. Like it's very easy decision. But if it's not more money, it's the life that you want to have, well, then it's a different direction. And at that point, it became clear that the financial one can only work if it's at service of the higher one, of the quality one. It only does, you develop the horsepower if you put the money as an accelerator, as a catalyst of the qualities that you want to express. And because then it's aligned, it's like a music that you're playing your music in life. And if you try to play somebody else's song, it ain't gonna come out right.
Right.
You know,
right.
You know, and so at that point in time, it became, oh well, then I should really write my music because that other song has been already written. There's nothing cool about it. I mean, it's very cool, but it's this other guy's song. It's not my song.
Right.
And then you can start to really play your music, and that makes it possible to play with others because now you're bringing something really unique, which is your vision, your qualities, and you're behind your life or in front of your life, but you're not tiptoeing. You know, you're going, and yeah. So in short, that is the direction. Don't get me wrong. When you make certain choices, you discover pretty quick who's your friend and who's not, very quickly. Yeah, very quickly, and it might bring significant changes, and those significant changes might not be understood by anyone but you. So there is a responsibility in trying to achieve your greatness, which is that you might be the only one that understands it. But guess what? It's yours. So
it is yours. You know, the person that comes to mind right away when you first began talking is Mother Teresa, because, right? I mean, she had no money, and yet the world admires her to this day. And she's been gone for how long? Many, many years. And still there's that sense of real purpose and meaning that we all get deep within us when we mention or think about her name. And so I think part of what you're talking about is the people who have been really successful. When you found you're successful, it's when you define for your own self what gave you meaning in life, where, and it wasn't money. Money doesn't enrich you, it's other things. It's fascinating.
Well, it was definitely a discovery journey for me. And I know individuals that would say, what are you talking about? First, get your money right. First, make money. Money will blah, 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 and all these things. And I do agree that a very, very wealthy existence is better than a poor one. Point is, if you want it to work for you, it needs to be aligned to you. Like you will make money your way with your game. And I think that is self-explanatory, but that's the way it goes. That's really the way it goes. You can be very rich and very unhappy, have a hole in your soul.
So tell me, why is it so hard for people to see that? You've worked with many leaders. What keeps them from wanting to use that quality measure of life?
It's a very interesting question. I cannot speak for everyone. I can speak for what I have observed. And it belongs obviously to a subjective experience. But one thing is who you surround yourself with determines a lot of what you see, what you're allowed to see, the consequence of you seeing something. So majority of people, unfortunately, have around them individuals that are not their friends. It looks like they are, but they're not. And that takes out a lot of energy, a lot of ability to observe, and so on. So that's one. Other aspect, it's way harder. Like it's way harder. There is a book, it's called Illusions. It's written by Richard Bach. I don't know if you ever read it.
No.
It's a very interesting. The same author that wrote The Seagull, Jonathan Livingston. I don't know if the title in English is the same, but basically Illusions is the book after The Seagull, Jonathan Livingston.
Okay.
And it's a very interesting book. In this book, it's a novel, but there is a story of this guy that is super powerful, can make miracles, can make things happen, is amazing, and everybody wants him to make more miracles, right? And he tried to teach them and tried to tell them, guys, you can do it. Like, don't have me do it. You can do it. Just learn how to do it. Do it. And nobody wants to do it. So at a certain point in the story, he tells to this crowd something very interesting. I read it when I was 14, and to me it was like, oh, you really opened the door. I didn't understand it till very late in my life, but at that point in time was an interesting change, which was this. He says, well, if, in this particular book, he talks about if God will come and tell you something, would you do it? And everybody's like, oh, absolutely. I will 100% do it. Doesn't matter how hard it is. I will sacrifice my honor or anything. It says, but even if it's really hard, and the crowd says, absolutely, I would do anything if it is a superior force telling me. He says, okay. And he says, what if God will appear in front of you and would tell you, I command you to be happy for as long as you live? What would you do? And everybody shuts up, right? And I thought, wow, it's way harder to be happy every day than to sacrifice you. It's way harder. Like if you try to sacrifice you, super easy. Go out and you do something, sacrifice yourself. Try to live a life of meaning whilst being happy. That's extremely hard. So it's easier the other way. That's why so few people do it. It's way harder to have a life of meaning and make a bunch of money and all of that, because the other one, it's easier. So I think that's the other reason why it's so few people decide to see further. probably some of us know that you were just different. Like you were little, you were at kindergarten or whatever, and you knew that you see things differently. Like as if everybody sees in black and white, but you see in color. So you would notice things that others don't because you're looking things differently. And it just is. It's just some of us are awake and some others needs to be awakened. And so that's why we need to help each other. That's why it's important to share experiences. It's like a puzzle, right? You are different when you connect to others. People add you and you are a version of you because you are connected to these other pieces, right? And if the pieces change, you change. But my personal viewpoint is that's why it's so important to share, to have a viewpoint, to help another. Maybe something that you saw or the way you say it or your story will make the other person like, oh, never look at it like that. And then he looks for himself, and he sees something that is different for him.
So, Andrea, when people come to work with you, do you take them through the success metrics and help them really take a look at that?
Absolutely.
And then are there people who then say, this is too scary, this is not for me? Or is the challenge so wonderful, thrilling to think that they can discover that they really seek it out with you?
A very small minority is like, no, I don't care. I just want the money. And usually I don't continue with them because that's not my mission to make money. It's not my mission. As much as I don't do certain kind of products or services, not things that I do because I don't believe in it. So I can't do it. Majority of people approaches it in a oh, that's new, like type of way. But they become quite interested quickly. I like to say that in my view, entrepreneurs are artists because they are building something from nothing. Their company, they're building it from nothing. They're deciding that it needs to exist and they keep making it happen every day. So to me, that's an art. That's art. And so because of that, they deep down know it. They know deep down that that's the way they should live, right? They have a responsibility in society that is not just to make money, right, is to help. So they usually know, and they're like, "Oh, okay," and it becomes a conversation, and then they understand pretty quickly. And a minority is like, "Oh my God, that's exactly what I was looking for." This new definition of what is success, and it really resonates with them. And the outcome of that is usually expansion of the business, and is usually expansion financially of their results and so on and so forth, because now their horsepower is really all available to them, and they start to write I use the expression to write a different version of themselves. Just because in the concept of the general rehearsal of your life, like the truth of the matter is that you are the main character. You should be the main character, right? Sometimes people are living their lives and they're not the main character. Somebody else is, right? They're just there. They're just a minor role in their own life. And they forget that they're also the screenwriter as well as the director. So they can change the character. They can write a different version. If you don't like that character, that version, they just write a new one, be a different one. So usually it becomes very interesting. The strength and the horsepower that people have, they often don't appreciate how much power they have, how much they could do. And it's just because they're not going in the right direction for themselves. So once they do, they're like, "Oh, I'm really strong. Oh, really? I can make things happen. I am not tired at all. I just can work like so long and I'm not tired. I can continue." And they're so convinced when the sales comes in that script goes just well. And yeah, it's just alignment.
It flows, doesn't it? When There's a flow process between what we think and hold in our minds and our hearts to what we see manifesting outside of ourselves also. It changes how we make decisions, I think.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah. You couldn't say better. Yes. It changes the way we make decisions. Yeah. There is a beautiful the derivation of the word decide. It means to cut. So actually, to decide means to cut all the other alternatives, which is an interesting way of looking at it, right? Is no plan B. When you decide, you cut the alternatives. So if you choose you as your plan A, well, you have to cut the alternatives. Sometimes you have to say no to something that looks like a great opportunity. I did it today, as a matter of fact. I did it today. I sent an email today. I had this offer to do a beautiful project, like really, really, really interesting project. It was a $2 million project. It's a communication project to launch something. I met with the team. I saw the way they want to work and so on and so forth. And I look at it and I was like, that doesn't resonate with me. Like, I know that the way I want to go about it will clash. So the only reason why I would say yes is because of the money. But we will all be miserable. Like, we will not be happy after as a result. So I declined. And that's when you can make a decision based on your success metrics, which makes the difference.
Oh, and the interesting thing is you free yourself up from tremendous stress.
Oof. Oh. Yeah. And you have a responsibility to be successful. So, like, I'm not saying, well, starve, be happy alone and starve. No, like, have a $20 million home and cars and games and so on and so forth, but your way, that way, as a result of the qualities that you have decided to represent. So then you will really enjoy it. Otherwise, you will never really enjoy it. You will not be happy.
Andrea, our time is almost up. What last thoughts do you want to leave with the audience? It is just a delightful, delightful conversation.
Well, thank you. Well, what can I say? There is no, sometimes people make choices to be safer, to be more safe, to be in a safer position. There is no safety. If you're not in the game, it's just an appearance. It can go away in a second. As opposed to, if you're playing your game and you are on your A game and you're doing what you know you're supposed to do and you're measuring it against you, well, that's the safest position you can be in. Even if there are financial risks or other kind of risks, those are not real risks. The real risk is to live your life as like the support role, as the secondary role. The one that doesn't even have name. It's just guy one, right? In the scripts, it doesn't even have a character name in the cast. And you end up being one of these guys that say hi on the background, right, on your life. So that's the risk. It's very safe as a minor role of a B movie. So it's not.
I love that analogy. That's great. Yeah, but many people play that role of being in the B role, and it's very safe. Or they're in the A role, but they're making everybody's life miserable at the same time.
Yeah, I would argue that they are not in their A role. They are in the weird idea of what an A role is. An A role is, like, if you look at all the A roles that people want to create, they have very good help, purpose, integrity, honor, decency. Those are the characteristics that one wants to live by. The rest, honestly, doesn't matter what is portrayed by what I say, the Instagram life. Doesn't matter what is portrayed, what the appearance is, how many girls they get, how many cars they have. That's not life. It just is not. It's something else. It's Instagram. So that's my view of that.
On that note, we will end. If you're not playing fully to who it is that you want to be down the road, your vision of who you are at your best, you're not playing in the A game. I like that view of really evaluating ourselves. Andrea, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And those of you who are listening to Building My Legacy podcast today, thank you so much for being with us. And remember to visit our website as well at buildtomorrow.com. Thank you. Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell button above. Leave comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And visit our other social media links as well. Thanks much.